Thought we had a good day today to end spring. We worked with a lot of young players today primarily. Had a pretty good live team period last week, and so this was a good way to end. We got a lot of young guys work today. Like I said, it was important for us to look at some things. Today I was really impressed with the way we kicked the ball. I thought Lemmerman did a really nice job today kicking field goals. Had some windy conditions, and I thought he did a nice job of handling it. So it was good to see that. Thought we punted the ball well today as well. In our pre-practice punt stuff. So I was encouraged by what we're doing. In those two areas, it's really important for us to come out of spring and feel really good about Ethan and Kyle both, and I think we do, which is important. So, felt like it was good today. I think when you go and you look at the entirety of spring practice, there's some guys that stand out to me. I thought Ken Seals had a great spring. I thought Austin Jordan had a great spring. Really encouraged by those two guys and the way that they've grown and what they're doing. Channing Canada, I thought was one of our most consistent players. Love the play we got at linebacker. Feel good about our defensive front. It's good to see Paul and Mike back out there getting reps. Really good to see Glover back out there getting reps as well. So was encouraged by a lot of that. For the most part, we stayed healthy. We had a little, guys banged up here and there. Don't think we had anybody that won't be with us in the fall. I don't know if I've ever been able to say that at the end of a spring football. So I was encouraged by that. I think a lot of that had to do with the way our guys trained, from the third week of January up until the beginning of spring ball and really through spring ball. So I was encouraged by the maturity that we showed and the dedication we showed to training and recovery and doing things the right way. So competitive spring, I think that when you look back at it, you say, who got the upper hand, the offense or the defense, it's going to be hard to say, which is, I think you want to come out of spring football and feel that way. So encouraged by a lot of things. It's going to be important for us to, to continue to build starting on Monday. Going to give our guys a little bit of a break. We'll have some optional weight room hours next week. And I'm sure we'll have the majority of the team take advantage of that. And, going to be important for us to get in the training room and continue to recover and get guys back healthy so that when we come back at the end of May, we can pick up where we left off. Those are going to be 8 important weeks for us leading up to the day that we report for fall camp. And so, a lot of stuff going on with this group. But again, they're going to get a little bit of a break. They've earned it. They deserve it. And I think it's going to be good. Coaches obviously get on the road, start recruiting, which we did a little bit of that last week. Now guys will really get on the road full time and transition from spring ball to recruiting. So feel like we're in a good spot, excited, got a lot of momentum within the program right now, and looking forward to getting on the road and seeing high school coaches and building relationships.
Coach, when you look on both sides of the ball, was there any particular position group that really exceeded your expectations?
That's a good question. I think going in, we had some questions maybe at running back. Felt like we had talent, just didn't have a lot of experience. Felt like that group really performed, probably more consistently than I thought we would. We added some experience in the portal. Felt like the guys that needed to make a step made a step. I think there's going to be great competition in fall camp for playing time. Like the depth of the group, like the variety of guys. We've got some, powerful guys. We've got some fast guys. We've got guys that can do different things. They all catch the ball well. I've been impressed with their ability to pass protect consistently. So I like the group. Quarterbacks is another one that comes to mind. Josh has been solid. I thought Ken has really performed at a high level. And then I think Adam kind of came in and we were going to go into the year with 2 scholarship quarterbacks and a little bit unsure if he could be a 3. And I think he answered the question that he could. He's got a long way to go still. He's a young quarterback, but there's a lot of stuff he's got to learn, but we're very encouraged by him. The 2 linebackers I thought had a great spring. I feel like Namdi and Caleb really played well. I just think those guys are experienced, athletic, committed, tremendous leaders. The buy-in's really high. And I like the young group of corners. I think we've got a lot of depth at the corner spot. As I said, I thought, Channing was one of our most consistent guys all spring. Devondre McGee did a lot of really good things this spring as well. So just, McIver I thought was solid. So like that group, and then, like I said, we're going to add Avery and Vernon to the mix, and and some young guys as well to continue to develop. So like the group, and I think overall those groups kind of surprised me.
You mentioned Avery and Vernon. A lot of guys had to sit out this spring. We're mainly on the defensive side of the ball. I guess how excited are you to see what this defense can look like when everybody's available and healthy?
Yeah, we're excited about it. It's gonna be fun to look out there and see everybody out there at once. We've got a lot of experience with the group, obviously with Bud. Played as many games as he's played, and Namdi played as many games as he's played. You just start looking at that group. Jamel starting to stack a lot of starts. I thought Jamel had a really good spring as well. Thought he was very, very consistent. I think Trey Watson, I think, has really been good for Jamel. I think he's had a big influence on him and helping him develop and be more consistent. I think those two guys have worked really well together, so I've been really encouraged by that. So that's it.
When you think about the offensive line, you got Cade Bennett back this spring.
Yeah, it's good. I think, you start looking at the group, there's diversity with guys. Rashid's got a lot of diversity. You can do different things. I thought the group has taken some steps. There's some young players that we needed to develop and take that next step. I think across the board, the group has done that. So I've been really encouraged by that overall. Just the depth that we have there is different than we've had in the past. I think there's more guys that can contribute. But Kate being here and being here for the whole spring, he's played a lot of football, and you can tell. He's a guy that's really savvy. He's in the right place. He's a powerful guy. I think he's given us a real boost inside, and I think Colton Deary had a really good spring as well. He's moved the center. He's down some weight. I think he's moving really well. I think he plays, is very comfortable playing that position. So I like the guys up front. I think that Ben's taking that next step that he needed to take, and so really encouraged. I think there's going to be a lot of competition. We're trying to figure out who the best five are. I would imagine that will continue into fall camp, and hopefully 2 or 3 weeks in, we'll have a pretty good idea who it's going to be, and then kind of get the best five on the field and get those guys playing together at a high level.
Coach, you had 20 freshmen come in from that class, I think it was, and looked like a lot of them are getting some reps this spring. Were there any of them that kind of set themselves apart that you feel like you can trust going into fall camp and maybe seeing some playing time this fall?
Yeah, I think Ed Small has been exactly what we thought. He's just he didn't miss a rep this spring. 15 consistent practices. He's just mature. He takes great care of his body. He was a guy that I thought might have a chance to play early. He's, I think, exceeded expectations when it comes to that. So very encouraged by that. Overall, the entire freshman group was really good. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to contribute, have a chance to play for us this season. A lot of it's going to depend on really what happens with the NCAA rules, whether it stays 4 years in a red shirt or 5 years. But I think we're going to be able to lean on a lot of these young players. I love the athleticism of the group. I think it's going to be a really solid group. When you sit down and you look at it and you go, well, is there anybody that we're disappointed in? And the answer to that is no, not at all. So it's not all the time that you can do that. When you sign 20 guys and have them here early, all 20 of them ought to still be in high school. And so, for those guys to perform like they did and consistently like they did, it says a lot about, their maturity and their dedication and their ability to come in and focus and learn how to practice at a high level. They're not there yet. There's some inconsistency still, but I was overall very impressed with the group.
How did you feel about what you saw from the receivers this
Good, yeah, it was good. I mean, the guys that came in, Man, Jack, and Dwyer were exactly what we thought. Eric needed to kind of take that next step, and he did. I think Eric practiced like a pro this spring. Was encouraged by that. DJ Rogers at the tight end spot, I thought had an excellent spring, very consistent. Encouraged by that. Dozie and some of the young guys that are really talented have taken that next step, and have to continue to get there, but have made a big jump from where they were in the fall to where they are right now. The one thing we got to get Major back healthy. He's been pretty limited this spring. Getting him and Jordan Bailey, those are two guys that we really need to get them back healthy and ready to go by fall camp. And Jordan came back at the end, I thought really improved and did some good things. And we got to get really a lot of production from that group. But like the overall wide receiver room, we got a lot of different guys that can do a lot of things. Terry Shelton's obviously an exciting guy. He's got great size and still learning how to practice and play and fight through, getting dinged up and all that. But like the group, like the talent, like the diversity in the room, again, in terms of size and speed and guys that can do different things. So it's a good group.
JP last year turned into a pretty good punt returner. And most importantly, he was consistent catching the ball. Have you guys kind of identified one or two guys?
Yeah. The good thing is we've got a lot of guys that I think can do it. Ed Small's back there catching, and I don't know that he dropped one the entire spring. He's really good at catching. He's reminds me a lot of JP in terms of his skill set. He's a little bigger. He's 210 pounds and can break a tackle, but has a knack for setting up blocks, a good sense of timing. So I'm encouraged, by him, and we'll see. Once we get kind of all the guys back. Like I said, Major was a little dinged up. He's a guy that could give us some catches as well. We've got a number of guys that can do it. Channing's done some good stuff back there. We've got a good group of 4 or 5 guys that we feel pretty good about. We just got to get to fall camp and figure out who it's going to be.
It's going to be the one thing going into the fall you're going to be looking for the running back room for a guy to kind of separate himself to be arguably for you.
I think the big thing for us is, we did not do a good job last year running the ball downhill. And that's been a big point of emphasis for us. We've gotten bigger at that position. KB is a big guy that's low to the ground, can finish runs. Got a little banged up at the end, but really liked what we saw out of him. Really the group's good. I like all the guys. I think the big thing is just going to be, hanging on to the football. There's such a diverse skill set that you have to play running back in our offense. You got to be able to protect, got to be able to catch the ball, got to finish runs. We obviously want somebody that can hit home runs, but we need somebody that can hit singles, most importantly. We can't have negative plays in the run game, and that was something that's really plagued us the last 2 years. Is too many, negative or 1-2 yard runs. We've got to do a better job of getting 3 yards when we run the football minimum. Got to get away from the negative plays. So just who can do that consistently, and who can take care of the football, that's going to be really important for us as well.
Coach, how big is it, to have the all the spring practices done now with not having to learn a new defense or offense?
Yeah, big thing. I think anytime that you have, you get to your second year with the defense and third year with the offense, I think that you can see a quarterback starting to really get settled in, and some of the guys that have been around for a while, it's year 3 now, and everybody's more comfortable. It seems like in the past, this time of year, we're trying to teach guys what to do. Now we got to teach them more how to do it and try to fine-tune things, which is what you want to see. And so, I thought our team did a really good job in the offseason of learning the offense, of learning how to do things. And then, the focus for us was to be really physical on the line of scrimmage this spring. And I feel like we made steps in that direction. It's something that's going to be really important for us in fall camp, to be a very physical football team, to be able to run the football and stop the run. Really will determine how good we're going to be. Those things plus winning the turnover margin, doing that consistently and not having games like we had last year where we turned over 4 or 5 times in a game. It just doesn't give us a chance to win. And so I love the way we grew as a team at the end of the season last year. We did a good job of taking care of the ball. We created more turnovers. I expect to do more of that in the fall. And, you know, if we can take care of the ball like we did at the end of the season and get better running the football and stopping the run, then I think we're having a chance to have a good football team.
Coach, do you feel more comfortable now than maybe 2-3 years ago as far as, you know, the portal's been open for a couple weeks now and just trying to...
Yeah, our guys, look, I've said it over and over again, but our guys like going to TCU. They love the school. They love Fort Worth. They love the community. You know, they love the investment in them. You know, I think that we give them the very best of everything that we can, whether it's medical attention, medical care, whether it's food, nutrition, whether it's facilities with the new facilities that are online and basically coming open in June. You know, coaching them hard, but at the same time, you know, having an atmosphere here where guys feel comfortable and want to be here. You know, I think the fact that we've had one player go in the portal, I think says a lot about their experience here. I think they like it, think they feel like they're getting better, think they feel like they have a chance to win. You know, and so, you know, I think, you know, we like our culture and our program. And so, you know, we'll see. Portal's just kind of getting started and we just finished spring ball and, you know, typically there's a little bit of more movement, but we'll see how it plays out. I hope there's not.
How do you kind of balance that with trying to get the new early enrollees reps while also getting the transfers reps while?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. We tell the guys all the time, look, our job is to win football games, to play the best players. And so, and they understand that. And you know, there's always conversation about what we're doing and why we're doing it. We have a plan and we try to get ahead of those things and just feel like that, make the players feel like that, you know, they're getting a fair shake and a look. And as I said, we try to get ahead of those issues and have conversations and where those guys, you know, can come and talk and be open about concerns or questions they might have, and then our job's to answer them, and their job's to go make the decision that's best for them and their family. And so, you know, we do try to get ahead of those things, though, the best that we can. You know, and I think that at the end of the day, if they're having a great experience, they like being here, they think they're getting better, they think they're getting invested in, then, you know, why would you ever want to leave?
Think about the way you've expanded the staff here as well. How much has that been intentional?
Yeah, we you know, want to thank, you know, our athletic department and really university for allowing us to add positions and coaches, whether it's in recruiting or on the field coaches. You know, I love our coaching staff. We've got a great mix of young guys and experienced guys that coached some of the best players at the very highest level that have been tremendously successful. And, you know, it's a great staff. I mean, tons of experience. Guys really like working together. You know, same thing, I think the culture in your program begins with your coaching staff and then really goes from there. And so, you know, if the staff wasn't as tied in, as unselfish as they are, then I don't think the team would be. And so it begins with us modeling that for our players and the way we interact with each other and the way we work together and the unselfish nature that we try to have as coaches, you know, permeates the entire organization. And so, love the guys. You know, I'm blessed to get to work with the staff. Really some of the best football coaches. And again, we were able to add some guys that I think are going to make a significant difference for us on both sides of the ball.
Coach, 15 practices done. When you look back, is there anything in particular that's noticeably different compared to a year ago about this team?
Yeah, I mean, depth. You know, I think depth. I think quality of young players in the program, you know, just gets better every year. You know, when you go someplace, you know, you go and you look back at our first recruiting class, there's not a lot of those guys left. You know, and probably when you take a job, you're scrambling a little bit, you're trying to learn the place, you're trying to see what fits and what doesn't fit. You know, I think we have more in our second class that's here, more in our third, and more in our fourth, obviously. And so, as you start stacking those young recruiting classes, you know, you should feel good about those young players in your program and the way that they've worked and the way they've developed, and we feel great about it. And so there's much more depth from, you know, 1 to 10 in some spots or 15 in some spots. And that just creates more competition in your program. It's, you know, people say it all the time, it's true, iron sharpens iron. And, you know, these really quality players practicing against other quality players brings out the best in everybody. And when you have to practice well to hold on to your job, and you have that mentality day in, day out, and somebody behind you is pushing you to get your job, that creates the kind of atmosphere you want in a program. And you know, we don't have it all figured out, you know, by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm excited about where we're headed.
Anything else, Coach?